we get on?
All right, we're good.
All right, good evening. Welcome to the May 9th, 2023 Newmarket Planning Board meeting. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all.
We have another set of new chairs.
Yeah, it's a couple months.
All right, now I'm going to open up the public comment period. I have 7:04. There's nobody out there. I will close the public comment period at 7:04. Next is review and approval of minutes, March 21st meeting. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the planning board March 21st, 2023 meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
The motion passes. Next is the April 11th minutes. Is there a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the planning board minutes of April 11th, 2023. As submitted.
Seconded by Patrick. Any discussion, comments? Editorial, any edits? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes of April 11th, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. I will abstain, as will Jane. So motion passes, 5-0-2. Alrighty, so first on the agenda is pursuant to RSA 675:7 and 32-238N, review and change of method of assessment of the municipal code of the town of Newmarket, New Hampshire. Notice is hereby given that the planning board shall hold a public hearing on proposed changes to the adopted impact fee assessment methodologies. The proposed changes seek to remove water and sewer from the impact fee schedule and to update the unit price fee while maintaining references for water and sewer usages or take any other action thereto. I will open up the public hearing. Is there anybody, there's nobody out there?
No one out there.
All right, I will then close the public hearing and then open it up to the board for discussion.
So is there any particular action we need to take on this?
Yeah, so right in front of you, basically what's changing is
No, I think everyone understands the
understand, so,
changes.
yeah, so the-
But
yeah.
is there a specific ordinance that we,
no,
that
you
the
just
town will vote on the change to the ordinance?
no. No ordinance is changing. It's the methodology. So nothing in the ordinance changes. It's the plan board is just revising the methodology and how things are calculated.
Well, I think the ordinance actually specifically states the impact fees for water and sewer.
Right. No. So yes, it's within the ordinance says that there's impact fees for water and sewer,
Right.
but it can be changed through the methodology. So the ordinance is not changing itself. It's just just the methodology is changing.
And the methodology pulls those out
Right.
to make them.
Exactly. So the methodology removes water and sewer impact fees.
Okay.
So we need to.
Yeah, we already had the presentation.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but it's up, okay. But I do believe that the ordinance itself, some of that language will change.
So there was an ordinance change in not the zoning ordinance, but in the chapter 14.
Okay.
That has already been.
But under the impact fee ordinance, you don't think any wording within the ordinance needs to be changed?
No, we had counsel from our legal counsel. They said
Okay.
no.
So we need to vote to approve this. Change in
You know, you-
methodology.
Yeah.
Why? Well, we don't
No?
do ordinances.
So no, it's not the ordinance change. You change the methodology.
Right.
Yep.
But why is the planning board involved with that?
Because in the ordinance it says the plan board has to have a public hearing on the change in methodology and vote on it to approve it.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the change in the methodology of assessment under municipal code town Newmarket, to remove the water and sewer from the impact fee schedule and to update the unit price fee while maintaining reference for water and sewage usages.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Jane. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the motion, vote aye, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next is, notice is hereby given that the planning board shall hold a public discussion on proposed language to amend 32-161 Historic Overlay District and 3.21 Architectural Aesthetic Review of the Municipal Town Code of Newmarket, New Hampshire, that seeks to add architectural design requirements within the Historic Overlay District or take any other action relative thereto. So, just to update everybody, I watched the meeting, the last month's meeting. There was, obviously, as you all know, a lot of good discussion about it. So, Bart, I'd like to have you just update us on what has occurred since that meeting, what revisions you've made.
Yes. So based off last discussion, there was, discussion on thresholds. And one of those points was maybe that, when people are redeveloping a historical building, that if they pass a certain threshold, that they had to come in compliance. So the idea was try to have some leeway for the homeowner, property owner. And I talked to legal counsel, and they are of the opinion that there's no authority for the planning board to have such an ordinance. So in light of that,
I'd just like to understand what they don't have the ability to do, is to have ordinances like this, or ordinances about which one can and which one
a
can't?
threshold.
Threshold.
Yeah, so it's all about the threshold. Council was of the opinion that, legal counsel, that planning board or the town can't legislate a threshold for that. So, based on that information, I try to think of something that would achieve that purpose, or at least something close to it. And what I ended up doing is adding a couple of new definitions. And so if you look on page 1, I added a new definition, reconstruction, and then one called redevelopment, historical overlay district. So in the spirit of the intent of the April discussion, I tried to create a non-applicability standard for those properties that, maybe on that 1980 list, but are so far, have been modified so much so that there's no historical value left. So the idea is, even though we're on that list, or you're in the historical district, that if you do any sort of type of reconstruction work, so reconstruction in this sense is an alteration, restoration, or expansion that modifies or adds onto the exterior portions of an existing structure. So if you're adding, if you're modifying, not redeveloping the lot or structure, then it's not applicable. However, sorry.
Do you have a list of those structures that would apply?
It would be, no, so I have to go, basically, it would be a case by case. I don't know off the top of my head, yeah. So we'll have to do a little more research on going out and seeing which ones have changed so much so, and then, corroborating on that list.
So, one point of discussion would be who would make that decision?
Well, I
That
think,
the building inspector would make the decision that
at
it's
that
not
point, yeah.
applicable?
Yeah,
Okay.
it would, because he would see the building permit application first.
Yep. Yeah, I just don't want to have everybody have to come to us for every little
No.
decision that needs to be made.
So I think it would be the discretion of the building official.
Okay.
At that point to say you need to go to plan board or not.
Yep.
And there's two avenues from that point, either appeal the decision, go to ZBA, or, go to plan board for review.
Yep.
So it would, just so I'm clear, it would apply to those specific properties that are on the National Register and reside in the Historical Overlay District.
Correct. So, those structures outside the historical overlay district that are on the list would not be applicable.
And structures are within the historical overlay
Correct.
district, but not on the list, or?
Are not applicable.
Yeah.
Right.
So getting back to our discussion from April, is then the intent that the only time something would come to the planning board, and I'm sorry to repeat it, but is that it's a property within the historical overlay district, and the building inspector has determined that that particular property is in the December 1980 National Register of Historic Places.
And in the district.
Correct?
Yeah, she said that.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yes, that's the intent.
So if someone wants to do something in the Legion, doesn't come before the planning board unless it's site plan related.
Unless it,
Unless it's in the district, I'm not sure if that property's in the district.
Well, Main
Yeah.
Street.
Yeah, Main Street, yes, it is, so.
But
Yeah.
it wouldn't be on the 1980
It's not on the
National
list.
Register
It's not on the
of
list.
Historic
But
Places,
it's
so
But-
in
you
the
know.
overlay district.
Yeah, but it is on 108, and which has some standards
Right.
as well, yeah, for site plan, yeah.
but that's
But it
not what we're
doesn't,
talking
it's
about.
not in this ordinance.
That actually makes more sense then.
But it's only for reconstruction?
Nope, it's for redevelopment. So,
Redevelopment.
so this is where it doesn't apply. I'm gonna read it. Reconstruction to existing structure within the historical overlay district that is not listed on the 1980 National Register of Historical Places, or the reconstruction of those structures that are on the list of the December 1980 National Register of Historical Places, but were altered to such an extent whereby the historical characteristics as identified in that document have been eliminated.
So that's line 52.
Yeah,
20
22.
22 to 27 on page 1, or page 2.
I have
So,
page two.
Legion wants to be reconstructed, they come before us. Because they'll fall under, it's an existing structure within the district, but it's not listed on the National Register.
No, they don't. They're in the district, but they can reconstruct it. Only when it's redeveloped. They come before you.
Reconstruction to an existing structure within the historic overlay district that is not listed on the December 1980 National Register of Historic Places.
So if you go to the definition,
Or-
yeah.
The reconstruction of those structures that are listed, but were altered to such an extent.
Yeah, this is under not applicable.
This is under A.
Not applicable.
Yeah, not applicable.
Thanks, Mark.
Yep.
And so are there any buildings that are outside of the district that were on the National Register of Historic Places in December 1980?
Lots.
It's gotta be lots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the compromise we agreed to last meeting.
I mean, I think the intention was,
I think in the last meeting, we were trying to, I had asked the
Trying.
question as to what were you really trying to achieve when you first brought this to us?
Right, and we
Because
decided
you were
Main
talking
Street.
historic structures, and yet we were dealing with historic district ordinance, which are two separate things.
Well, that, yeah, and we decided that what we really wanted to do was focus on downtown. And that we weren't gonna get it in the details of every single historic building.
We don't have authority.
The only authority is under the
If you had a
district.
commission, right.
It's the overlay district.
I mean, right now, we have nothing at all, so this is a huge improvement.
okay, I'm sorry, go ahead. Continue on, Bart, if you would, please.
Yeah. And then, under B, which is minor site plan review, this is be, planning board would be reviewing these applications. And it'll be the reconstruction of a structure located within the historical overlay district that is listed on the December 1980 National Register of Historical Places and does not qualify under 1.055 here and above, so that not applicable section. So just to circle back, reconstruction is an alteration, restoration, or expansion that modifies or adds on to the exterior portions of the existing structure. So if you're on the list and you're in the district and the character hasn't changed from when it was identified in 1980, then you come into planning board for a minor site plan review.
So an example of that would likely be Johnny Boston's wants a new roof.
Right.
Or river works.
Right.
I'm pretty sure those are on the register.
Yeah.
So anything from the exterior. So that'd be another conversation to what extent, potentially.
Well, I mean, I know you discussed this last time, but, I mean, I would support exempting certain things from it, like a new roof. I mean, this whole, those of you that haven't been in town long enough or don't remember, is we had a big brouhaha in town in like 2009 or 10, because there was a historic commission established, and the corner building right downtown where Riverworks is, they were putting a new roof on. They had a slate roof, and they were all upset that she wasn't putting a slate roof back on it. And you're looking downtown, there's not a slate roof left. And so there was a big brouhaha about that, and it turned into a complete mess. So I mean, things like roofs and replacing windows, I think I would support exempting that type of stuff. If you're gonna change a siding or something, maybe that's a different story, but, I mean, maybe that's getting into too much detail. But anyways, continue on, why don't you go through that?
And then the last section that has been modified since the first rendition of this is number 6 on line 43 on page 3. Number 47, excuse me. Line 47 is the redevelopment of a lot or structures located within the historic.
It's not a line
Yeah,
called,
we're on
because they're
Don't have
numbered
lines
by-
here?
Yeah, but they're numbered by, it's consecutive from the beginning.
Yeah, I don't think I have
So it'd be like 93, or, that's what I was saying about the
You
other
always
one.
have something different than me, because I have my,
Yeah.
I line with him.
Oh, I'm not
Oh,
with you.
you and I are using last monthly meeting, or
Yeah,
not?
this
No,
does-
the
this is
language
the-
matches.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Same, yeah.
Well, it's page 3, number 7 on page 3.
Page 3, number 7.
Yeah, redevelopment.
Oh, so he's saying 7 here.
Yeah, not line 77.
Yeah.
Oh, I said 47.
No, yeah, I know.
Okay,
I
that's
was-
fine.
That's
It's
77.
not-
Okay.
It's 77 on this.
Okay, so let me use the ordinance reference.
Yeah,
Number
so-
7.
Okay.
Okay. Great.
Thank
That's strange. O word. The redevelopment of a lot or structure located within the historical overlay district. So if we go back to the definition, this new definition is on page 2. It says redevelopment, historical overlay district, and it says the demolition of existing structures and replacement with new development within the historical overlay district. So
It's on
Someone
page 1.
tears down the building.
then you have to go to planning board for review, which references the standards, the design standards and site plan review that we already have. So that's what we'd be using.
What's an example of why they wouldn't have to come before us anyway? So if somebody tears down, like a mixed-use building, wouldn't that trigger them coming before us?
Now, if the use doesn't change, it depends. Well, it might, depends. I think it's just we're trying to find some universal language that catches these properties where the historical value is.
So if someone wants to tear down a building like on Nichols Ave,
Yep.
they have to come before us.
It depends if they're on the list.
If it's,
Well,
yeah,
well, no,
only
no.
if it's
The
on the,
redevelopment of a lot or structure located in the historical overlay district. The redevelopment.
Right, so that goes back to what are we trying to achieve within the historical overlay district? Is a certain type of look?
But the question is,
Yes.
under number 7, a house on Nichols Ave that someone wants to tear down and reconstruct another house there.
Yep.
Would fall under number 7.
Correct.
As a redevelopment.
That's correct.
But in the big picture, why would anybody have to come to us to tear down anything?
Right, this goes back to,
What are we gonna do, say no? I mean, if
this-
somebody wants to tear down.
I
the
think it's
building.
more what the historical overlay district is trying to achieve, which is a certain type of continuity.
Yeah, I know, but.
you're
I
saying the
agree with
tear
that,
down
but
or the rebuild?
The rebuild is different, but if
Yeah.
I own a building downtown and I wanna tear it down, and I don't wanna build anything back for 10 years, I should
It
have the right
stays
to
like
do
that.
that.
Yeah, it stays that way. It's when,
Yeah,
when
it's
you,
the
when, it's
redevelopment.
when you redevelop it, it comes to planning board for review.
But,
Oh, I see what you're saying, the demolition of existing structures.
Right.
Right, you're right. So if someone wants to demo a house out there, they would have to come before us to get permission to demo a house.
No, because you have and there, so that's what links the two together.
And replacement, okay.
So yeah, you gotta have both in order to come to the planning board. So,
But if you look up the definition up above, it
Well,
says
that's-
any construction, demolition, alteration, or improvement
What?
Demolition and improvement are two separate things.
No, but this definition is specifically for the historical overlay district.
Okay, so that's meant to be demolish a building and replace it with a new building, you need to come.
Within the historical overlay district. So if you have both, you
Yep.
demo it in the historical overlay district,
Yep.
you're fine, no plan board approval. Once you redevelop it, that's the second piece, or you want to redevelop it, then you come to plan board for review, only within the historical overlay district.
Why would it say
So-
the replacement of existing structures with new
So-
development? Why would we use the word demo?
Right.
Well, replacement with new development, so.
But that's what you're saying, this is gonna, your real definition is take demo out of it, because it's really about replacement
Replacement of the new.
of existing with new development,
Yeah.
of an existing structure. Wouldn't that take out the ambiguity there?
So
Yeah,
it doesn't matter why the building's no longer existing, in other words,
It could be a fire.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
fire, flood,
Anything,
or they purposely take it down. In
So
all
the
of
re-
those circumstances, they would have to come in order to replace it.
Well, yes, but we're talking two different things, we wouldn't want them to come here to demo it.
Right, I understand.
Yeah.
It's,
Yes.
but
No,
I
no.
just wanted to make that part
Yes.
clear, is what you're saying is, it doesn't matter the circumstances of which the building is no longer standing, the moment they decide to replace it, they have to become before the board.
Yes.
I think that's what that Bart meant under redevelopment,
right.
it's the replacement, or you're building on a lot. Right, it's a big
Right.
lot, you're building on.
That's the intention,
Right.
But it
so-
really has nothing to do with demolition.
right.
Right.
So what happens though, and I don't know, I imagine there's properties in town, what happens if there's a lot out there that has no building on it now? And had no building on it in 1980? It's not addressed in,
Right, so
Yes.
it's, so that's,
Well, it's
maybe it goes to
redevelopment, wouldn't it?
it'd be
With a
redevelop.
lot.
it wouldn't be, it would,
Well, he has under here 7, redevelopment of a lot or structure located within historical overlay district.
but if I have an empty lot
Yep,
and I go to develop it, I would say that's not redevelopment.
right.
Redevelopment.
That's development.
Redevelopment implies, to me, tearing something down and
Right.
putting something up.
That'd be
or rehabbing
development.
or whatever.
So are you really saying it's the development of a lot or redevelopment of a structure?
So then if you go to C, that's already,
Development or redevelopment of a lot.
yeah, so if you go to C, which I didn't change anything at all. Establishment of non-residential uses where no non-residential uses currently exist, establishment of multifamily. So I guess you wouldn't,
Oh,
yeah, so for building a house, you wouldn't, unless it's in the historical overlay district, I would say you would have to go to planning board for review. Say if you had a vacant lot and you want to build a house.
you need it, okay,
Yeah.
that covers it, yeah.
I mean, whether or not the house was there 6 months, or there was never a house there,
Right,
there's no
'cause you're-
house there when you're coming.
Right.
So it's the development. I think
Yeah.
If a house burns down, it's not redevelopment, any
No.
different than if it was a cow pasture.
Right.
Right. Okay.
I-
Yeah, that explains that.
So, Bart, the redevelopment and then the two definitions that are both redevelopment, how are they
Different?
applicably different?
Yep.
Let's see
So, oh,
Going
so,
back to definition?
yeah, so this is page 2.
Section 1.03.
Yeah.
So, redevelopment, common historic overlay district, so that was basically, that's different than redevelopment, and they could coincide, really, in the type, if I had to think of all the configurations of, applications. But this is another conversation I kind of want to broach with the planning board is, this definition, redevelopment as it's as it's edited, is kind of aligns with the stormwater definitions that we have in Appendix C. So my idea was, why not link them together? So there's continuity within the ordinance or the site plan regs. So basically, if you were to add, disturb 20,000 square feet or add 5,000 square feet of impervious surface, more than 5,000, then you come to planning board for site plan review.
So does it make sense then to delete the demolition from up on the first one and then add under redevelopment the demolition of existing structures and replacement with new development or development of a lot, a vacant lot within the unimproved lot, I guess you'd say, right? A vacant lot within the historic overlay district.
Yeah.
And there is a definition for vacant, because if you look at a tax card, it will say it's a vacant lot on the tax card.
So, yeah, so how about the development, redevelopment of a lot within the historical overlay district?
Well, I think that's what we're trying to say under
Yeah.
redevelopment.
Right.
At
The
least
first
that's what I'm
definition,
hearing.
the top definition, not the bottom one,
I am under definitions.
which is two redevelopments. that's what
Right.
I'm thinking.
Well, I think you lit a demo up on the top one.
That,
Right.
is the top one
Under,
specifically of a lot? Has nothing to do with a building?
It has nothing to do with anything, it's just a lot.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's
It's-
20,000
This
square
is just,
feet.
this is
Yeah.
just regarding a lot. That's why I thought that one should say lot in it somewhere. Because we're talking about lots in one and buildings in the other, and it's,
Yeah,
seems like.
I think maybe this is for a different conversation for a different time, so, I would say the top one, disregard for right now, but we can circle back to that later. I guess my point, I was trying to align it with the current, language that we have in site, and, stormwater regs, yeah. So, maybe we can just table that for right now, and then,
Yeah, because that would be confusing.
yeah, so,
Yeah.
1 to 5, yeah, so I think that's a different conversation for later.
And that would be 2 to 5, because line 1 stays.
Right, yeah.
in the definition.
Exactly. But I guess just put in the back of your minds, kind of, where can we create continuity within our
Right,
regs?
that's right.
So,
But what you mean under 8 and 9, you're trying to say it's the replacement
Yeah.
of an existing structure with new development, or it's developing a vacant lot.
right, in that district.
I think that will take away the ambiguity from further down.
I agree with you.
Probably you can get rid of that, right?
So, just for clarity's sake, what would do you remove the definition or you just add in
No, I
language?
think you want to clean up the definition.
Yes.
So redevelopment under the historic overlay district is basically the replacement of an existing structure with new development. Or development of a vacant lot within the historic overlay district. That's what I'm hearing, that's what we wanted
I
to
agree with
apply
you.
to.
Sounds about right.
I think that's what we're,
Development of a new vacant lot. Yeah,
I think.
or
all right, you
development
got
of
it.
a vacant.
yeah, I got it, yeah, so it's
Okay.
replacement of existing structure or development of a vacant lot within the historical overlay district.
And then 105, you've got the exemptions.
Yep, section 1.05,
Clear on that.
number 5.
But I'm sorry, now we were back to that on page.
On page 3, number 6.
Number 7, so why is that needed? Or you're trying
I'm-
to, you gotta tie it into,
I'm tying into
the
minor,
definition.
minor site plan, so I'm taking the definition and referencing it.
However, would that not say,
it has to match the definition.
Yeah, so,
it does, but also would it not say, which otherwise does not trigger site plan review?
Well, same as above, does not qualify under.
right, so this in number 6, it would
No.
require minor site plan review. So it would be, so,
But if I tear down a 100,000 square footprint building
yep,
and replace it, I'm gonna come in and argue that it's a minor site plan, because it's a redevelopment.
then,
But
but
it
there'd
triggers
be
the-
other triggers too, like
Right.
under,
Well, I mean, I think it should be clear that
yeah,
this is unless otherwise
right.
required by,
Why would we add any of this? If it's not exempt, then they've gotta come before us.
that's true.
what I was trying to achieve was to exempt those parcels.
Or what is minor versus major?
Yeah, so I don't
Okay.
want, I don't want, because my thought process was if there was any elements that would trigger a major site plan review, then that's
Right.
gonna apply.
Yes.
I didn't want to put a burden on the property owner or the developer,
Right.
so minor was, the thought process, minor review. Based on the conversations that we had.
So it is redevelopment of a vacant lot or an existing structure that does not, it's not exempt under 5.
Correct, that's the way I read it.
Right. So,
So 6 and 7 would kind of be, I think, right, you want to say what falls under minor site, and it's anything that's not exempt under 5.
Unless it falls under major.
Well, I don't think he has anything under major.
no,
No changes, right?
Now, the redevelopment could fall under major for another reason.
Right.
that's what I was getting at.
That's my point was that it could not be a minor for other reasons.
Correct. So,
Yeah.
the argument couldn't be made, there's other elements that would trigger a major.
Right.
It wouldn't
Right.
be a minor.
It would have nothing to do with the historic district.
So if I was to redevelop, if I was to build a house on a vacant lot
Yep.
in the historic district, there's nothing on the register. Number 7 says you have to go to minor site plan.
Correct.
And if number 7 wasn't there,
No, I'm saying combine 6 and 7, but what you're trying to say is under minor, what has to come before minor is anything not exempt under number 5 above. However that gets worded, but 6 and 7 can be combined.
Okay, so it'd be the reconstruction or redevelopment of a lot or structure within the historical overlay district.
That is not
As-
exempt under
That's not exempted.
105A5.
But Jeff, you're right, if you build a
Remember
lot
that
on a
anything-
vacant lot now, you have to go before the planning board. You would, according to this.
but this historic wouldn't necessarily be applicable unless this is in here,
If it's a vacant lot in the historic district, it's applicable.
even as it's currently sits today.
No.
Oh, no.
No, that's what I'm
All
saying,
that-
that's what I'm saying, he's,
no,
yeah, so that's what
Oh,
it does,
right.
is all I was trying to point out.
Right.
But if it's, is there anything in 105 that would make that not applicable?
No, I think if you do any type of,
Because it's not exempt. There's nothing there's nothing in 105A that exempts.
the exemption in 105 is for those buildings on the list, the National Register list, that have been altered to such
Okay,
an
I
extent
gotcha.
where there's no historical value left.
Well,
And that determination will be made by the building inspector to go to site plan review or not.
because redevelopment falls under reconstruction? Because clearly, if
Correct.
there's a vacant lot, people will say there's no historic value,
But you're in the district.
but you're in the district.
Yeah. The value is that land in the district, which the town has designated for historical value. So we're two different things. We got district and structures.
Okay, so then take that one for, why would you have to come before us with a lot, but if you have an existing structure that was that's on the list, but it was altered so it no longer has historic places, then you don't have to come before us.
Right, so it's kind of giving some leeway to those existing people that, but those people owning those types of structures, but if there's a vacant lot and you're building something new, that's a redevelopment and you want to align with the standards within the overlay district, the architectural standards.
Is that a redevelopment, though?
It's development, so we would have to, it's a
I have a hard time telling a single-family homeowner they've got to come and get our approval to the historic regulations. The lot could have been vacant for 100 years,
Yep.
right?
yeah, I guess.
Well, what I'm
So
saying
many
is,
iterations.
you're giving the person who's on the register, who's modified it to an extent that it's no longer really has those characteristics, they're exempt. So they don't, and then yet, if they're not on the register under 6, that doesn't make sense.
So you're trying to say that if you build a new house within the historic district, you need to make it look historic, essentially, which,
Right.
Well,
which,
it has to match, it doesn't have to look historic, but it has to fit.
It has to
Yeah.
follow the standards of,
and I'm just trying to, and then if you have a house that you've altered that no longer looks historic, you don't have to turn it back into a historic house.
You don't have to.
So that
but-
make-
but
that- I
you're
mean, that
also-
kind
of- only
exactly,
if you're making-
You can do whatever you want.
That kind of makes sense,
until you
though.
demo it, then you have to bring it up.
Right.
Yeah, you have to bring up to those standards, but if you're just doing siding or, those type of things.
Or additions, you
Additions.
can do additions without getting any.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
But the building inspector can say, wait a minute, if you have a historic house, the building inspector can say, wait, you can't
You're exempt,
do that. If it's not altered.
okay.
So you have a historic house
Yep.
that's on the register that still looks historic.
Yep.
You wanna put new siding on it, you go to get your building permit. The
You-
inspector can give you the permit without the planning board.
No.
Cause it's on the register.
Correct. And the
If it's
historical
not on the
val-
register, they can do whatever they want.
Yes, until, yeah, if it's not on the register, until they demo it and
Until they
rebuild it. Correct.
Or if it's on the register and
Right.
you modified it beyond a
Right.
point,
Yep.
you don't need it.
And that point, to say to a point isn't too much leeway? Is that, from the legal counsel's perspective?
Yeah,
Right,
that's somewhat subjective.
It's very subjective.
I
Right,
don't
so- could see
feel
that.
like there's any consistency here between every property owner within the district.
Right. You could see that person saying, well, I've modified my historic building to the point where it no longer has historic
I've gotten,
value.
you
I've
know,
put on vinyl siding.
5 building permits since,
Right,
since 1980,
yeah.
exterior changes. I mean,
I think
but
that's,
more my point is, there's a lack of consistency. Some people are subject to it, some people aren't. It really depends what you did with your property, and it really depends if it was on the register.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt the way it is now proposed, there's a lot of ambiguity, I guess.
So I guess the easier way of saying, if you demo it, you gotta meet standards. I think that's the easiest threshold. I mean, I don't know how other,
I guess I'd like to go, what are we trying to achieve with this?
We're trying to
Well,
appease.
We're trying to achieve a compromise between Ayn Rand and the guy that's in the hospital,
Like Provost.
Mike Provost.
So
yeah.
what are we trying to achieve in this district?
Well,
I
there-
think, oh, go ahead.
there are people who are thinking that we shouldn't be trying to achieve anything, that people should be able to do whatever the hell they want. And there are people who think that every pane of glass must be in the right position, right? And so we don't want either one of those positions. So what we're trying to achieve is some compromise that, like right now we have absolutely nothing. There's no regulation at all. So we're trying to achieve some step that moves us toward preservation of downtown.
That you keep going back to downtown, but we're
Yeah.
really talking well beyond downtown.
Well, it's not that much more beyond.
It's significant. Most of the properties are off Main Street in this district, when you actually
No,
count the
no,
number of
it's only
properties.
properties in the district, as I understand it.
No,
Yeah,
my
but the-
point,
right,
Scott, is
but the
most of the properties in the district are not located on Main Street. Okay, if you add up all the properties.
Right.
But, again, going from here to here, my point comes to, it needs to be equitable across every property in the district. You can't just pick and choose that because you have a vacant lot, or because you have a historic home, or because you have a historic home, and when I say that, on the register, that has made changes, that the regulations are different. Right? If you're going to have if we're having some kind of an ordinance where they come before us for site plan, it needs to just be equitable to every property, not like what's on the property or what's not on the property.
Well, yeah, so
That's
if
the
what
intent of
what
an
you're
overlay
saying is
district.
then every property should be subject to this, then, you know, that's, Mike Provost and would be very happy with that, right?
No, Mike Provo is of the position, and I don't wanna speak for Mike.
Well, I'm
Okay,
just,
but
you know,
let me
that
just
general.
go back to the reason to have a historic district commission is that it's really not by an individual property, it's all properties within the district. And so I think where Mike would be heading is that all properties in this district need to have historical architecture. Now, hard to know what anybody is thinking about, and and it's not just Mike, there were a lot of people that were on that letter,
Right.
but nobody has come here to speak about this. So I come back to, what is the problem we're trying to solve? When there's no one here within the district that is coming before us, or from, anyone who went to the council about this, or wrote the letter to the planning board, what are they trying to solve? Nobody's here. Nobody's asking us or telling us what the issues are.
Well, they don't like the look of one building that was rehabbed, is what initiated all this stuff.
I mean, I think part of what Bart's done, and I might be wrong, but, or maybe you achieved it without trying to, or, is that there's, as you move forward in time, as old houses get taken down, you kind of somewhat perpetuating the historic district of town. Because if the house gets torn down and rebuilt, it's done in a with historical architecture or whatever. So, but if you've already altered it and it's there, we're not going to force you to turn it back into something else. So you're kind of letting the things continue that have already occurred until the house comes down in 50 years. But when it does, it might be built with historic architecture that matches some of those buildings that are on the register. That'll be maintained in that way, perpetuity. So you're kind of like, to me, it seems like a slow recreation of something over time as things deteriorate and need to be rebuilt.
Well, I think that's the intent, but I think what Val is getting at is if you and I own houses next to each other, and I don't take care of mine and mine's falling apart, I want to put a 30 by 30 flat roof addition on it, I can do that without asking anybody's permission. You've maintained your house, you can't do anything. I don't think that's fair. I think that's an extreme case, but that's really what we're
But that is,
doing.
That is, yeah.
that's what it's saying.
So,
What
and
do
I
you
don't
mean,
think
what
that's
do you
what we
mean by
want
you
to do.
can't do anything?
Any addition you need to
Without
do is gonna
approval.
have to meet historic requirements.
Without
So you get penalized for maintaining your house in the proper way.
Prior to the ordinance being there.
No, right now.
No, right now, with this ordinance,
this is
that's what this
Well, this
ordinance.
ordinance isn't here yet.
No,
Oh, no,
but
right,
as
right.
So that's my point,
propo-
like,
yeah.
like prior to it, there was no, you didn't have to, and there was no reasoning to it.
Yeah, the only
And
time,
and eventually, like, I mean, anytime anyone passes any law, it wasn't in existence before, any ordinance, it wasn't in existence
Right.
before. Somebody is gonna be affected in a way that they disagree with.
But what I think what Val is saying, everybody should be treated the
equitable.
same.
It should be the same, yeah.
Either everybody has to do it or nobody has to do it. I shouldn't be able to do what I want because I choose not to maintain my property. Yet somebody who maintains their property can't necessarily do what they want.
Well, one other way to look at it is
Says the
currently we
opposite,
have a certain inventory of historical buildings that have been maintained. For whatever reason, whether it was the owner took pride or whatever the reasoning was. If we put this in place, it does sort of encourage that behavior to continue in lieu of a new owner comes in and says, well, I could tear down this nicely maintained historic building and build something new, but I'm really not gonna gain that much because I'd be just in the same position I am today probably, right? Because I'm gonna have to build something that looks pretty much the same as what I tore down. So it sort of incentivizes the owners of the future to continue to maintain those historically maintained buildings today. So you're sort of preserving what you've got to some extent. Is it perfect? Is there gonna be buildings that end up falling down or burning or whatever happens? It's history, like you've said before, Val, at some point things will change. But that's what I see here, is you get something in place to help preserve what's already been preserved. you're right, there's some buildings that haven't been preserved, and they're already lost to this kind of historical idea of maintaining.
Yeah, they are, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and I see what you're saying, Patrick, but this isn't what this says. That's more my, that's why I'm bringing, that's what I'm trying to kind of flush out here in the discussion. And I think what I'm also hearing is you're talking about buildings that have historical value.
Right, because they've been preserved, like we've been talking about. Like, they've been maintained to an extent that there's still value there in what we're looking at.
But our district doesn't apply to just those.
Right.
I think that's more the issue I have with it.
Well,
It's one thing to say if you're on the
Rather have it be an
historic,
inventory of buildings in town as opposed to a district.
if that's the objective of what people are looking for in the community, that they want Newmarket to preserve its historical character in buildings that are specific to whatever's on that list, many of which are downtown, or many of which are on Main Street, if that's what they're looking to protect, I think that's a different topic than trying to develop architectural controls or reasons to come, or certain properties, because of their condition, have to come before the planning board to undergo architectural review. I think those are two separate discussions.
I think the purpose, Scott, of your intent was twofold: protect those properties that are historic, and also create a vibe, preserve the feel of downtown.
Right.
That's the main objective. And I think the way you do that is through a district and design standards.
Yeah, I just think
Yeah.
we're dealing with the wrong district as far as what we're trying to change. We have the Main Street Overlay District, which we keep going back to. We're trying to protect our Main Street, okay? And I totally support that. I also think we're gonna be spending quite a bit of, social capital and money on really moving forward with the North, Gateway, which is really kind of an extension of Main Street. We've worked a lot on the South Gateway. And do we need the consistency all through Newmarket along 108? And is that really where the focus needs to be for how we want to keep, maintain, and have our downtown redeveloped?
So you would say,
Because that's a different district. That's not talking about, properties that are up on Nichols Ave or Washington, or Lincoln Street, or getting back in along Granite Street, other than obviously there are some historic buildings there, the Stone Church, the Historical Society, that absolutely should be subject to architectural review.
so are you suggesting though that this becomes, is discussed as part of the North Gateway? Doing one zoning, one thing through the whole,
Yes, and,
keep it to
right.
the 108 corridor, not the historic district per
Exactly, we
se?
don't have like a downtown corridor, we have this like 108 corridor. I think that's important, because it's really, that is our Main Street, right? I mean, our Main Street isn't literally just from, Jerry Ave, literally up to the bridge, or right from the bridge. I mean, our Main Street goes really to the town line. Or that's the intent of where
Yeah,
we're
I
heading with
guess-
the gateway,
I don't think many people would agree with you on that.
but that's what you're looking at with the gateway.
Well, the gateway, words like gateway, I mean, okay, you're talking 15, 20 years from now. This is something that we're trying to achieve now, and in 15 years, we can change these documents.
Well, again, what are we trying to achieve right now? What has happened other
Well,
than?
we've explained to you what you don't like it, I think is
No,
your way to say
Scott,
it.
what
right?
has happened? Somebody did a
Do you
different
like
facade.
downtown? Do you think it's a valuable part of do you think the downtown is a special part of town that makes us
Absolutely.
distinct? Right?
I
Okay,
think
so
that Newmarket
how
has a great downtown.
Okay, so
There's no
how do we
doubt.
how do we preserve that so that it doesn't, that we maintain it?
Again, I'm going back to, we're talking about downtown and we're talking about the historic overlay district. They are two separate things. okay? The downtown is part of the historical overlay district, but it's not the whole historical
Okay,
overlay
so-
district.
If we just said downtown,
We have a downtown overlay district. I'm
okay,
just
so if we
concerned
said
why we're
downtown
not
overlay
focused on
district,
that, if that's the
how would
goal.
that be different? If we said that, how would this document change?
We would be looking at the downtown overlay district zoning, and we would be amending that portion of our zoning.
Okay, but how would this document change?
So we go back to the zoning where the overlay district is located in chapter 32. We
Okay, but
reference-
I mean, I think all the details here would be identical, right?
So basically what you'd be doing is referencing, this, you know,
Those are, yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about line items, I'm
He's talking
saying.
about the methodology.
Yeah, what this document says would stay, right? The veterans, they don't have to change it because they're not a historic building, right? But Johnny Boston, he would have to come because he's a
no,
historic
it
building.
would change. So the way it would change is that you say any type of redevelopment that's on 108 downtown, North Main Street,
Yeah.
you come to the planning board for review,
Anything.
anything.
Okay, let's do that.
I mean, I just keep hearing that that's really what everyone's talking about.
Well, one thing I would agree is I feel like we are missing the input of those people that live in the overlay district, of the historic, some of the people from the Historic Commission or Historic Society that were pushing some of this but haven't really showed up. So we don't have, I don't feel like we have any other input as far as how those groups feel.
So I kind of want to interject here. So I know this is to me a stopgap measure until we have this comprehensive review, or rezoning process for the gateway, because it's going to extend downtown up 108, and then and other places potentially. So, and the way my thought process is, there's going to be a huge conversation on design. So the idea is to get our architect in here so people can understand what that feel they want, and what that feeling they want on 108. So this is a design issue, I think. You know, so,
It seems to keep coming back to that.
yeah,
Because so when we're talking about the area, right?
Yeah.
To put it in layman's terms, we're saying from either side of the street, say from where Johnny Boston is to where the library is?
it would
Is that-
be,
is-
no,
is-
We've
that
got,
your
we have
definition?
So
the
it's-
downtown overlay district.
oh, that was,
That's pretty much what it is now.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought,
But
yeah.
it goes way off of 108, it comes up Chapel Street and
Yeah.
Granite.
Yeah, and so.
And Nichols Ave and those areas.
Do you remember maybe what, maybe 3 years ago, we had, the folks come in and talk about where the homes are, and I think, excuse me, I forget the names of the streets. Over by where the brick homes were.
Oh, New Village.
Yeah.
New Village.
And how
yeah.
people came and they said, look, you know, we're okay with the development, but we don't like the design of it. It's gotta mirror what we have here today, right?
Yep.
And I know a lot of us wanted to keep that look, but none of us really felt comfortable in saying, you have to do this, you have to do that. And that's what your concern is even now, right?
Well, I have two concerns. One is that, I mean, I don't think properties on Nichols Avenue should be treated the same as properties right on 108.
I agree.
I'm very familiar with Nichols Avenue, and it's not a high-end district where people are
Let
gonna
me get
have money.
apartment buildings there, right?
Exactly,
I mean,
exactly. And then I just want to make sure that everybody's treated fairly,
Exactly. I think we're saying the same thing.
you know, the same.
Yep.
As this is currently written, this is only applicable to houses on the register that have been maintained and are within the historic district, and new houses that are going to be built within the historic district.
Yes,
That's all it's applicable to.
yes.
as
No,
it's currently
properties, not just
Properties
houses.
too, yeah.
Properties,
Properties.
commercial properties too.
Properties, yeah.
Properties, yeah, yes.
Buildings.
written. That's all.
Part
it
and
is.
parcel. Yeah.
So, if you have a building such as the Weaver's Row, it's not on the register.
Mhm.
They can do whatever they want there.
Yes. No,
No.
they had to follow the standards,
Right,
because they're in the district.
because they're in the district, they're not exempt.
It says reconstruction to an existing structure within the historic overlay district that is not listed is exempt
So that's for alterations, you know, you're doing
That's what
like
I'm talking
siding,
about,
yeah.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so that's the
That's what I'm
concern
talking
I
about.
brought up
Like,
before, right?
Yeah, that
is
was my major concern last time, is that if the window breaks, you have to come to the planning board, or if you wanna put the
Right.
new siding on your house, you have to come to the planning board, it's ridiculous. And yet, that's gone, right?
No, so,
But it's just reconstruction.
yeah, so the way reconstruction is defined here is that is any alteration, restoration, expansion that modifies or adds to the exterior portions of the existing structure. If you go under section, the exempt section, it says reconstruction, so it's referencing that. So if you do any of those things, it's not applicable.
Right, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
so it's not applicable.
Correct.
You don't have to come to the planning board.
Right.
Right.
Correct. Correct.
If you have a broken window
Correct.
at Weaver's Row,
Correct.
they want to replace, yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
So the only thing that this is applicable to is a house that's on the register that hasn't been completely changed. Or a commercial business, sorry,
A vacant lot,
or vacant
Right,
lot.
yep.
Or
or something.
building
that
a new
would come
house.
to-
Or a redevelopment. Yes. So, like, yes, a redevelopment, not a not maintenance.
So you're not affecting most of the properties within the district.
you know. If I wanna tear a house down, if I wanna tear an apartment building down, that's a bad example, I have to come to site plan.
Yep.
On,
Sure, you wanna-
Washington Street.
You want to tear, if you
I
want to
wanna
tear a house
four-unit
down,
unit down there,
sure.
cause I wanna build a new apartment building,
Mhm.
much more energy efficient, you know, more marketable. Am I coming to planning board for architectural review?
Yeah.
And my question is why?
We did architectural review, didn't we, on
On 108.
the place they built by the railroad tracks?
Yes.
But cause that fell on the site plan.
But
Well, it's
Well,
in
the
the
every
apartment
day
building you're
duplex.
describing
I have
won't
a
fall under
du-
site plan?
Well,
Okay.
because I don't think it's triggered. Let's use a duplex as an example. I've got a duplex up on Nichols Ave. I wanna tear it down, I still wanna build a nice, better, more energy efficient, you know, 2-unit, first floor bedrooms, you know, because of their, you know, because of the market. Whatever it is, I wanna replace a duplex on Nichols Ave with a new building.
Is
Why
the-
do I have to come to site plan?
Why would to rebuild it in a historic exterior architecture, how would that negatively affect the process? I mean, I understand you have to come to planning board. But how would it negatively affect, like, energy efficiency or placement of bedrooms or?
Could be cost.
It's a cost. It's an added cost going to plan board for review.
That's the added cost, not the modification, not the,
Well, no, you're assuming that I wanna build another
could deny it.
Cape-style duplex that mimics what, you know, was there during the mill era.
So basically, you're telling.
that's the- yeah, so you're creating, like I was trying to say, like the goal seems to be to take that historic district and maintain or recreate it, but not force people to maintain something that clearly doesn't fit the historic definition in a historic manner.
I think that's an assumption, Jeff, because we really don't know. It seems like people are concerned with Main Street,
I mean,
right? Because why would it be any different if I'm on one side of Granite Street versus the other? I mean,
Or one lot from Main Street versus on Main Street.
it's the visual.
Is the visual for people driving by and visiting, or people that live here?
Well, I think that, you know, I don't know. I
Both.
don't wanna put words into people's mouth who
I'm
want this
not
to
even
happen.
considering,
Yeah.
I'm considering my own perspective
No, right.
on the town and how it's developed in other places I've been, that the historic district isn't usually isolated to a single street. It's like an area of town, and not just like only the houses on this, that front on this. And I know I was a little bit of a stick in the mud last meeting, but most of it was because I didn't want people to have to come to the planning board for simple things. Like, it's a waste of time and money to have to come here to replace siding in a window, but I do respect the value of the historic nature of it, of an area as opposed to a strip. Essentially, I've seen other towns where they take the main street and they develop it in a modern way, and then they maintain the rest of the neighborhoods in a historic way, because economic development, new developers putting commercial buildings, don't want the building to look historic necessarily. But the neighborhood has got a 50-50 historic character. Maybe people want to maintain that or return it to some former way, so
I mean, we can
it's just a perspective on it.
talk. I mean, my thoughts are, first of all, that if what precipitated this was done on Nichols Ave, this never would have come up. It's because it's downtown. So I think initially, the focus was downtown,
Right.
on the downtown, and obviously it becomes easier to just have it as a historical district district for other people. I would prefer to focus just on downtown, but maybe we can't do that. But I mean, we have a bunch of different opinions here and different thoughts. I mean, should we not just schedule a public hearing and get people in here to listen to them?
This is a public
This-
hearing.
No,
That's
it's
what
not.
this is.
No,
it's not.
no, this
No?
is not.
This
Oh,
is
this
This
discussion.
is just a discussion.
Okay, I thought this moved to public
No,
hearing
no,
last
nope,
meeting.
no,
No.
we didn't, because we still needed language.
I mean, I would argue that we go with what you have already, and let's get people's input, because
Yeah.
that input could change our positions completely too, depending on.
Yeah, I would want, before public hearing scheduled, that the planning board agrees on language that they want people to read.
All right, I apologize.
Yeah.
I agree.
And then you've met with some developers?
Yeah.
Right when this was first discussed, what was the concerns there?
There are concerns that, overly burdensome restrictions, to the downtown area that's so subjective that they're worried that, as maybe boards changes, different opinions changes, so you have that subjectivity and that there's more uncertainty. So that's their concerns mainly. So,
I would point out that our former building inspector was here, in the original meeting, and Mike Hoffman, and he pointed out that he has been involved in a number of towns in the area, and that whenever contractors came to Newmarket, they always came to him and said, okay, give me your list of restrictions and everything. And he always said, we don't have any. And they were always shocked that, according to him, almost every town around here already has some kind of restrictions on what you can do and can't do in the town. And that we're the Wild West here. Now, that was Mike's comment, I don't know if it's true.
And that may be why downtown is so vibrant too.
there's that.
Yeah, well, so that brings up a good point, right? Have we gone and basically looked at what has Exeter done, right? They have a vibrant Main Street that still maintains a historical character, right? So what does Exeter have in place for, or?
You can go Portsmouth, Exeter,
Yeah.
different, they have a very comprehensive review process.
Yeah, I was gonna say Exeter, as I looked at it, it's
Yeah.
much more
Mhm.
intense than
You just look at
we're
Exeter, you can
proposing.
tell.
It's a separate process than planning board review.
Right,
Well,
It's a
and-
whole different
and-
entity.
I mean, I know it.
This
yeah.
is harder for us, in my mind, this is harder for us in Newmarket too, because unlike Exeter or Portsmouth, we don't have a completely historic downtown.
Right,
We have a bunch of everything down there.
Right.
I'd say 3/4 of downtown isn't historic.
right. And I think that's one of the things that I
That's a challenge.
that's the challenge that I see in this, is the subjectivity of the building inspector today is gonna be different than the building inspector in 5 years, and what one determines is significantly altered and no longer applicable is gonna be, could be very different from 5 years from now.
Right, but the planning board could also have, if it says in the planning board, then same thing, planning board changes as well, but the planning board at least has those design standards that's codified in site plan review that they have to follow. And again, there is some, subjectivity to that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, there's
that's
always
what-
gonna be
there's
subjectivity.
there's the process,
Always gonna be.
for relief.
We try to make it as airtight as we can, but there's always gonna be subjectivity.
And this is
This is
where-
always gonna start with the building inspector saying, I agree with you, your historic building is no longer have any historic nature, so you can do what you want. That's gonna be the building, or you can't, you gotta go to the planning board.
Correct. And another decision that makes it, more easy for the board to have these compromising discussions with applicants is in site plan review regs. So waivers can be applied when there's a good idea.
But that's still, I would prefer not to have to go that route, because waivers are very subjective. And what we sit here tonight, or 6 months from now and say, we'll give you a waiver on, the next planning board could say, no, we're not gonna give you a waiver on
Right,
anything.
but the better than variance.
Oh, I agree completely, believe me, I agree. There's not an easy answer to this,
Yeah.
Right.
it's gonna be a process.
So I don't know about Exeter, but I do know that Portsmouth has this downtown overlay district, which is, again, it's separate from, they've got two things going. So you have the Historic District Commission, which applies, right, to buildings and certain areas, but then you also have the downtown overlay district, which has additional, set of regulations. So I'm trying to come back to, where really should we be doing this?
So I'm not here representing my opinion, which this is my opinion, but I'm also representing the town council. And the town council as a body believes we need to do something to ensure that the downtown at least keeps its, and the downtown keeps its historic, or keeps what is believed to be its historic presence, okay? And, and I think the right side of the street as you're walking toward Exeter is pretty much all historic buildings. So, I mean, I think anything that gets us in that direction would be a good thing.
Yeah, and I would say that I respect that decision. I just don't think anything will get us in the right direction. I think we need to come up with something that works for everybody, the property owners and the town and whatnot. And there's gotta be something that we can come up with that'll work. It's just that I would rather take the time and get something that's good as opposed to something quick. And I mean, apparently it's not gonna be quick. I mean, like we said, we haven't even, nobody's spoken to us yet about what they're really looking for.
Right.
We're going on an assumption.
Yep.
And, we could be, we could be right on or we could be way off track, but we haven't heard from anybody on either side of the topic.
So is that the goal, Bart, by making it into a public hearing, is that it forces people to come out because they see that we're about to vote on something, potentially?
It's their chance to have input, yeah.
But they could be here tonight having input, no?
Well, this
Right.
is just, they could
Because
be.
this is an agenda,
Well, but Bert
this
is
is
saying
agenda
he wants to
item.
have something you could show him.
So I didn't notice it like a proper notice. Is
But-
it just a normal agenda item that I put on for discussion purposes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So there
people
wasn't
can come and speak on agenda items, right?
But the public notice is really, I mean, let's be honest, no one's getting, you're not posting in the newspaper anymore, correct?
No,
The
so,
public notice is being posted.
Right.
And because this, maybe we make the decision that if we're going to be, if it's just Main Street, let's say, if we go with that, the properties within the downtown commercial overlay district, that's what it is called. Each of those property owners by statute would have to be noticed because it would be less than 100 people, 100 properties affected, not people. If we're doing the whole, if we stay under the historic overlay district with proposed amendments, we're above, the number of properties within that district is like 152. So therefore, we don't have to notify, under statute, each individual property within that district. We as a board may want to instruct, Brett to actually do that.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get, what the difference really was between notice and why people would come to the next meeting and not this meeting if they wanted input, or our last meeting.
I mean, it's like any, the site plan reviews we do, right? People show up when they have the public hearing, they get noticed. Very few people show up that haven't been
They-
formally noticed.
Right, gotten a letter in the mail.
Right, exactly.
So, I mean, I personally would think that if we were gonna make changes to the actual, that affect the entire district, that we, even though it's 150 people, that we notice all of them.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
For sure.
And many of those properties are actually town-owned properties. Not many, but a handful of them.
The way I look at it is if people are legally and formally noticed and they don't show up, they got no complaining. All right, so where do we go? we had talked about, and we had some discussion on the changes to this, right? Are we done going through that? I think the last couple pages, there isn't anything, right?
No, it's just, I just for, this is a carryover from page 3 from last. This links the design standards, so on page 3, right above section A, really that ties these design standards to Route 108 and also the historical overlay district. So if anything under minor site plan review,
Do we want to take out where it says along Route 108? 'Cause aren't we, at
That's
this
in
point?
it
that's in it
now.
already. So whatever's bold is proposed, and red strike through is being removed. So the way it reads right now is, it is also important to avoid economic hardship and impose unreasonable standards on existing building owners who wish to make modifications to their structure. This regulation applies only to structures located along Route 108. That's how it is right now.
Right, but what
That's in there now, so
Yeah.
if someone has to come to site plan review and they're on 108, they have to abide by the architectural.
By
The
3
issue is, all of these properties that don't have to come to site plan review, which is, I think, what we're trying to address.
Right.
Right.
Well, what I'm saying is, along Route 108 and the historical overlay district that's just one and the same. Can't you just say all the all the structures within the historical overlay district? That incorporates that section of 108, right?
Right, so I think the intent for this section right now, as it is currently codified, is to have that continuity along Route 108. Now we're expanding it to the historical overlay district.
And,
Okay,
but
all
also,
right. I
Eric,
didn't look at it that way.
and applications that are required to come before site plan. There's a lot of stuff on 108 that doesn't come
Right.
before us.
Right.
Right, okay.
It's only if it's coming for site plan review.
Okay, I get that now.
So that addresses some of your issues with the north gateway.
Most of the North Gateway wouldn't come before us for site
What's
plan.
on 108?
Well, it is, but it doesn't have to come before us right now,
Exactly, so
Yeah.
right?
the proposed
Because
language,
it-
yeah.
No, I mean,
what
if-
they might be doing doesn't trigger site plan. Okay, if we had architectural controls along 108,
Which this
or the
states.
down,
No,
only if it comes before site plan.
Okay.
Right, so,
but Scott, to your question, the gateway, whatever project or projects get developed out of the gateway, under that, whatever it turns out there, will more than likely be in front of the planning board for other reasons.
Right.
For site plan review, because it'll trigger site plan review.
A development that is not exempt from site plan, right,
Right.
would come before us. And if it's on 108, would fall under our existing architectural review.
Right.
But if that project on 108 does not fall under site plan review, it's exempt,
Then we don't see
then
it.
we don't see
Yeah,
it.
if it's a single-family house or,
Yeah.
right. So, what do we want to do? I mean, I think we want to try to get this moving along. Is everybody okay with the revisions that have been made to this document tonight? And if so, I would say we should try to set up for a public hearing.
I think we've continued to refine it, and I think that going forward, right, certainly a public hearing is needed to get some more input, but at least I think we've
Yeah.
continued to refine it to get a framework that we could put out for some,
Yeah, I agree.
hopefully some public input.
I agree.
So so we have the public hearing, and say no one comes. Is our next move would be to vote on that language that we established tonight? Or would it be to further modify it, or whatever we want to do after that?
Whatever we want to do after that. If people have read it and have more edits they want to do, we can do the edits, or we can vote on it the way it is, whatever the board wants to do.
And if nobody has any input, nobody comes, and we decide we want to change it a bunch, do we then have to have another public hearing?
yes. if there's a substantial change, then another public hearing has
Or
to
we would
happen.
continue the
Or you could
meeting.
continue it.
Continue the
So,
meeting.
yeah, so I would suggest, yeah, exactly,
Because
yeah,
if
continue it.
we're giving notice, right, then it's a continuation.
Yeah, so you continue it if you want, add more language.
So does
Never
everybody,
close it, yeah.
does
I think
everybody
if
want to
you send
see
out
this
written
again before we
notices,
put it out?
You're gonna get a big
Well,
audience.
Can,
What the-
I'd like to vote on whether or not we want this to apply to 108 architectural review along 108 in this downtown commercial overlay, or if we can pick from Jerry Ave, which I think it is, if that's M2. Then we
believe
can
it is.
modify that, we can pick what we want, because we can modify what the overlay district is there. But do we want this to apply to Route 108, or do we want it to apply to, which is one district, or do we want it to apply to the historical overlay district, which includes 108 and other properties off Nichols Ave, Lower Elm, Church, Chapels, where the district is now. I think what I would like to hear is where the board wants to go as to what any changes will apply to. Or what architectural review will apply to, the whole district or the downtown overlay district. I could be a minority on it, but
No,
I
I'm
just keep
trying to think
hearing
about
everybody
that.
talking about
I'm
Main
trying to
Street.
think about that. I guess, what is the harm in saying it's a historical overlay district? And if, listen to the public, at the public hearing and see what they have to say, is one, and I mean, that's one of the options you're throwing out there. I think I would prefer this was just the 108 corridor, 'cause I think that's really what the focus was intended to be on, and I know Mike, and I'm sure there's plenty of other people here who would like to see it be the whole historic district, but I think initially the issue was the Route 108 corridor.
Yeah, I think Mike would like to see it apply to all historic homes.
Right.
It's not
Correct.
just about the district. I think
Correct.
their issue is historic structures within Newmarket.
Yeah, was that historic overlay district, was that newly developed, or has that been in effect for
1980.
1980.
since 1980? Because it seemed almost to be rather arbitrary where the boundaries were, right?
It was called the industrial, what was that referred to as? In West meeting minutes, or?
Newmarket Industrial, Historic District.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it was named in 1980.
Hmm.
And I'm sure Mike was involved with that, so it'd be great to have that background.
Right. So that's why, like, Nichols Ave was probably on it, because those buildings were built for the mills originally.
Right,
But why would only?
Why wasn't New Village included then?
right.
Or
That's,
why
it
isn't-
seemed, that's why I
Why
was
only
saying.
the 3 properties on Spring Street?
That's a good question to ask them. I
When
mean,
they show up?
when they created a walking tour that you can take of historic buildings in Newmarket. And it seems like that walking tour is mostly focused on places that you can easily walk to from downtown. So that may have something to do with the geography, because, yeah, there's older structures throughout Newmarket that aren't included in this. And there's the village, which arguably is a very historic area. So that's a good question. I did do the walking, it's an audio walking tour, and they go through each building. And there are lots of buildings within the overlay district that have an interesting story behind them. So I can understand why they thought that's an important area.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I would
Beyond-
encourage people to
beyond
do
Main
that.
Street. Beyond Main Street.
Beyond Main Street, absolutely. You
Yeah,
walk around, there's all buildings, and they talk about the different things that happened at those buildings and why they include them in their walking tour.
And they're all within this area, within this district.
Mostly, not all of them, but mostly, yeah. Like, it goes up a little bit further on what we call South Main Street than that overlay district does, right? Because obviously, as you walk up South Main Street, there's some very historic structures related to the Cheswell family and things like that, so.
Can we take
All
a
right,
phased
so-
approach?
They're 2 separate ordinances.
Yeah, the 2 separate things.
Okay.
But so, I mean, Val put out there, do we wanna have this be, you know, relative to the downtown Route 108 overlay or the historic district overlay? Just thoughts. Well, we can take an official vote at some point, but what's everybody's straw poll, I guess, thoughts on what you would prefer?
So specifically, we're talking about architectural review throughout the historic district or architectural review along Main Street.
Right.
And we're not picking and choosing, in my opinion, what properties are subject to it. We might pick and choose what the threshold is.
Right. Yep. Well, I mean, I'll start. I'd prefer downtown Route 108 overlay district, because I think that was the initial intent.
Yeah,
Scott?
I would agree with that. I think that, like you say, that was probably what the initial intent was, and that takes away my concern of the somewhat arbitrary nature of who is in the historic overlay district, who's not, what buildings still apply, what buildings don't. So I guess if you limit it to just 108, then you can have a more consistent standard.
Well, yeah, and then, I mean, to be clear, this is whatever decision we make would be the way we're gonna present it. That can always change based on the input we get. It's not etched in stone. So, Scott, what's your thoughts on it?
I can do either one. I'd like to get something started.
Okay. Patrick?
I would prefer to include the overlay district. I feel like there's significant things that would make that worth considering preserving that whole district.
The historic district overlay?
Yes,
Just to
yeah.
be clear, yeah, okay. All right. Jeff?
I agree with
Jane?
108.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
108.
108? Val?
Yeah, 108.
And I said I prefer 108. Well, we should,
So the majority is 108.
well, yeah, but
Yeah.
should we take an official vote on it? I
Um,
mean, I don't know that we have to. I guess we don't even have to.
I think it's more for
No, it's just for me.
getting a flavor of where we're gonna go, right?
Right, and then I can modify the specific provisions,
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
because it might be changed. It's the overlay, it's not the historical overlay district anymore, it's downtown overlay.
Boy, I wish we had some input from some other people
I
before
know.
now.
Well, let me throw this out there. I mean, as we talk to 108, it does go over to South Main. Right, I mean, the downtown
Yeah.
is not
Yes.
just Main Street. It's Main Street, it's South Main, it's, it's Jerry.
Right, is the official name,
That's the downtown.
is the official name of that though, the Route 108 Downtown Overlay District? Or Downtown Route 108 Overlay District? What you said, does that include those areas?
I think, well,
It should.
as part of that, we can just redefine it.
Yeah, then
Right. Of
then
what's included in the
Then
downtown
so-
commercial district.
everyone's
That we want
notified that's
architectural
affected.
review
Yeah.
of.
That's the case, yeah, which is good, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we should notify, when we get to it, we should notify everybody anyways. I don't think it's right to,
So, yeah, I think we need to have a discussion what properties are affected. What is that, what do you want the overlay district to look like, ultimately?
And it would actually
As
extend it
proposed.
because it is the M2, which brings it really up to the railroad tracks.
Maybe for,
oh, yeah, okay.
So if someone wants to
On
do
South
something
Main
with,
or on Exeter?
someone wants to
South
do
Main,
something with
Exeter.
the old funeral parlor, let's say, this is a perfect example.
Yeah.
That currently doesn't require architectural review. If it was in the downtown overlay district and we adopt this, it would.
Is the old funeral parlor vacant?
I believe it's vacant now.
Yeah.
I think there were people
They
there,
had
at one point there were
apartments?
apartments in there, but I think they're vacant now.
It sure looks it.
You couldn't pay me to live in that building.
Well, somebody suggested to me it would make a great parking lot. We have this parking problem in Newmarket, and somebody suggested, why don't we just tear that down and build a parking lot?
so how far north? If the railroad tracks is the cutoff,
From the south, where we going to the north, Val?
I would think you'd go to the river,
to the bridge?
To the river?
Okay.
because the gateway is gonna start after the river.
Yep.
And then, maybe at least we're setting some precedents for expectations of what we wanna be seeing on the gateway.
And what do we say, all properties with frontage on 108 or South Main Street in that area, or Jerry
Right, 'cause
Ave?
that's what it would be.
So this won't go to a public hearing.
Oh.
Doesn't sound like it, no.
No, I think
I think we need to clean this up and,
Yeah. agree on principles,
yeah.
boundaries.
And I think what we're saying is with all the work that Bart has done, that he's put under the historic overlay district, basically gets pulled out and put into the downtown commercial overlay district.
Right, I don't think it's a complete, right.
Right.
It's basically inserting this in the
Other section.
other section.
Really, it's the zoning section that's being modified, and then some verbiage within the site plan review.
Right.
So,
And we don't need a public hearing, we have a public hearing for site plan, right?
when it's amended, yeah. We still need a public hearing for 2, so we'll just go through procedurally. Ultimately, the planning board is going to have public hearing to review, to amend their site plan regulations, and then make a recommendation to town council to change the zoning provision, so the downtown overlay district, that section. That will go to town council, and they'll ultimately vote on that. So, no, go ahead, Jeff, please.
Can we ask questions?
No.
That's,
I don't want to do that.
that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
So, the concern seems to be of putting an undue burden on people maybe building a new two-family home. And they have to do architectural review, but there's no concern about, like, commercial developers saying, I don't want to jump through those hoops.
Well,
I'm very
commercial
concerned
has
about that,
to,
but we have to draw the line somewhere.
But commercial already has to.
They have to already. So if you
On
go
site?
to, let's see,
So now the goal is just to expand that?
I think the concern seems to be that there are certain activities that in this area or these areas that require no architectural oversight that could basically harm the integrity or the image of the town. And how do we mandate that, or how do we control that? Because right now, the
You're
only
saying it's
control.
already?
only if it goes site plan review.
Only if you have to go
Right,
to site
so-
plan.
We're expanding
So
the
that's
site plan review.
commercial and multifamily, right? The only two things.
Use
that count?
changes, yeah. There's a couple other iterations.
But not any use change.
Let's see. Applicability. All right, so minor applicability would be. There we go.
Yeah, non-residential sites.
So change of use of a non-residential site, which no change in floor area is proposed. 2, and minor review is expansion of non-residential floor space by 500 square feet or less with no change of use. And 3 is within the M2 district, which some of these properties will be located. Any change of use of an existing non-residential building which will be accompanied by a renovation of the facade of the building, which, in the opinion of the planning board, will enhance the aesthetic contribution to the heritage and visual qualities of the village.
So you're talking about adding this entire thing, essentially, to
Basically, if you do it,
that whole other overlay.
Right,
Yes.
all properties,
So-
not just non-residential.
all properties within this downtown overlay district, if you do anything,
Yep, no, I understand.
yeah, okay,
But so,
yeah.
So I didn't understand that you're talking about taking the entirety of this and moving it.
Yeah, so we're taking the historical overlay element out and replacing it with downtown overlay,
The
Me-
entire thing.
but yeah,
yeah. So, the facility that got this discussion going, the
Yeah.
building inspector made the determination that there was no change in use?
it was a commercial to commercial. Retail, I mean, cafe, I don't remember what,
Okay, all right,
There's a
that's
pizza
fine.
place
That's
before.
yeah, so it's
Oh, yeah,
technically,
it was.
Yeah, it was,
Was that the pizza place?
Oh, no, the chicken place is the.
What was next to Wingett's?
What was
Right.
next to?
I don't remember, that's,
I
I,
think it was a soup
Was
place
it a
at
soup?
one
Yeah,
point.
soup.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
cafe, soup,
Yeah.
restaurant.
yeah, no,
same use, yeah.
but that decision was made.
Right.
I
Yeah,
don't think it
Exactly.
was,
there was no change of use is what was
yeah,
determined,
it was
right?
a restaurant
Yeah.
of some sort over a period of time.
Yeah. So no change of use
Right.
is why it didn't trigger coming to site
even though it was renovated, yes.
Well, so here's a thought, if we're condensing to this Main Street district, probably not using the right term, right, but I don't, off the top of my head, I don't think there are any single-family residential buildings in that, on Main Street, in that district, right?
Well, South Main there
Oh,
is.
yeah, there's a, you know, and then you
Is there
go
a
on
couple?
Jerry Ave.
Maybe down, but
got-
those are mostly probably
On the-
duplex at least, right?
I think there's some single-family homes on the east side of 108 heading south. Down the bottom of the hill, I think there's some
Yeah, those are all
single-family homes down there on the
single
right.
Okay.
families.
The ones on the other side are all multifamily up on the hill. for the
Yeah,
most part,
yeah.
But yeah,
Maybe one or two there, okay. I was just thinking that,
There's
does it
few.
really apply to any of them, and would it? So are we,
well,
But it will apply.
It will. So
it would, so if one of them burned down, if a multifamily burned down and you wanted to rebuild it as a single-family home, so then, yeah, I guess you do, would
Like,
still need
uh,
that.
The parsonage, that's a great example, right, on, everyone know where that is?
Which
The
one is it?
new parsonage building. So that's coming down, if you go by, say my father's old garage, the house up on the hill, that was the old parsonage house. And must have been on the tour,
that's a big white house
big white house.
On the right?
with the
On
old
the right,
steps
up on
coming
the top
down.
of the hill.
Oh, okay,
Oh, right,
yeah. I was going the wrong way.
So, you know, that's an example. Where it
No.
wouldn't require site plan.
You mean the church that was connected to
Yeah.
burned down? Yes,
Yes.
the church that parsonage was, it's not, I get confused because I think the second oldest building in Newmarket is the Moody parsonage, which is way down by the golf course. That's the second oldest.
Where
Yeah,
was the
so when you
church?
said parsonage,
Yeah,
that's a
sorry,
building
sorry,
I think
I'm in
of.
the district, I'm in Main
Yeah.
Street.
Where was the church of the white building parsonage?
Isn't it where the post office was? Isn't that where it was?
I think so, yeah.
There was a
Yeah,
big church
yes,
there that
yes,
burned down. I
yes,
think it
that's
was
right
that
Yeah.
church.
Alright, so, just to review, moving everything to downtown overlay district, and then any type of development that occurs there will go to plan board for review.
And we wanna revisit what that
And then,
overlay district map is.
and then redelineation of the overlay district.
Like that.
Which will probably irritate everybody, but it's a starting.
But then it's
But
correct.
it gets everyone, I think it gets everyone notified too, so.
No,
Yeah.
that's a huge thing, is we have to notify everybody. Yeah. So,
Well, I think we're also keep kind of redefining what our downtown is.
yeah,
So there'll be no change to the current historic overlay district at all.
Correct.
alrighty. You know what you gotta do, Bart?
I do. So does plan board write the language and revisit it, come back before a public hearing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
And, obviously, we'll notify everybody, hope we have a good turnout for the public hearing.
Yeah, so 2 meetings from now, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
Alrighty, thank you all, that was another good discussion. I watched that one from last week, this afternoon, it was only an hour and 20 minutes, something took me 2.5 hours, because I took a nap.
That riveting, huh?
No, it was right after lunch.
Okay,
All
gotcha.
right, committee assignments, Conservation Commission. Jeff?
Can you do it?
You give such good reports.
Does anybody wanna
I
step in?
want to finish with the Energy and Environment Committee as we get through the final part here of the work that we've been doing.
Yep, I'm
Like to-
fine with that. That's perfect. Jeff, do you wanna continue?
I mean, I'll do it if nobody else does. I'm on another board now outside of
Oh.
town, so.
Does anybody
this
wanna
meeting
step in?
This week I have 3 meetings, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night.
Ooh,
So
that's brutal.
they always line up in the second week. Next month it'll be
You meet
1 and 2.
Thursday?
That's conservation, yeah.
And I'll
Yeah, I
stay.
can't do meetings.
I don't mind, I like being on the Conservation Commission, obviously.
Okay.
It's not for 8 years previously.
all right, I'm good. You can stay there. Capital Improvement Program, Jane?
Stay.
Jane?
Yes.
Jeez. Hey, Patrick, I got one question for you. The Energy Advisory Committee, do you know, I know this isn't a committee thing, but like the public bathrooms down here used to have lights that turned off and on when somebody went in. Now they're back to regular switches that somebody can leave on all day long.
Oh,
Do
just
you
here
know?
in the town hall.
Yeah, in Town Hall. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know anything about
Okay,
that.
all right.
That sounds like a town hall
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
But I think your real question is that facilities wide?
Well, that's a bigger picture. Is that, were they
Yeah.
malfunctioning, or have you heard anything
Haven't
about
heard
that?
anything about
Okay.
that. I mean, the only thing we've talked about with lighting is I believe that, and the town already did this, is they went through and replaced all of the lighting to the lower cost light bulbs,
Yep.
right?
The LED
The LED
Yep.
light bulbs.
Yep.
So that was the big
Okay.
lighting change that's been made.
Okay, thank you.
It seems strange that you'd pull out an automatic light and replace it with a switch.
Yeah, the only thing I think of is there must have been an issue with it
Yeah.
for some reason. You know, maybe it's a temporary, when I went in there to fill up my water bottle, I'm going, what the heck, this is going backwards.
Yeah.
But, all right, Chairman's report is nothing to report. Committee reports?
So we, as you know, we were short of town councilors, so Soki Dornblatt, a local baker, accepted, he was one that got 2 votes. And then Justin Glazebrook, who is a software developer, lives in town, is joined. So now we have the full board reconstituted. The town did a facility study of buildings, focusing mainly on this building and the fire station and one other place. They were originally gonna look at every building the town owned, but they decided for cost reasons to make that smaller. That's been presented, but by the people doing it, but we really don't have a whole lot of conclusions right now. Arbor Park, which is, the park across the street from the post office, maybe kind of diagonally across there, doesn't have any arbors anymore, as you may have noticed. And that park's being redeveloped. They're gonna redo the landscaping and everything. They're budgeting about $90,000, and it's going to include there's a group to make a Cheswell sculpture. A guy sitting on a park bench reading, I think.
Cool.
What?
I say cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen any?
You can see the models, they're actually around town.
Yeah, he leaves them around town. I could bring one in.
Oh, really?
You can see one
Yeah.
in Crack Skulls, I know for sure.
Oh, okay.
We'll check it next time I'm there.
Yeah, I just found one on the sidewalk. He goes and puts them out at night.
Nice to
and-
see.
Yeah, little 3D
Little
printed things.
Yeah, they're just little
Yeah.
3D models of, guy, tri-corner hat.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, is he reading or what's he doing? He's sitting on a bench doing
Yeah, I
something.
believe he's reading.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So, but there may be other sculptures going in there as well. And then, so we got the 15-minute parking thing now stationed on Central Street. And this is really strange. And so when they did that, they actually read the laws. And it turns out that in 2006, we made the parking on Chapel Street alongside the Big Bean a 15-minute parking spot. But they never signposted it.
Oh.
And so it took from 2006 to 2023 to come up with a 15-minute parking sign. And I found out about it because Justin McKinney, the comedian guy, he parked his car there and got a ticket, and he was like all furious about it, because. So there was a kind of controversial because, there's a really shortage of parking in downtown. So it kind of looks like we gave you some temporary parking on Central Street there, but we took it away on Chapel Street. But it turns out Chapel Street was actually designated 15 minutes in 2006.
Did I see that there was something on Elm Street, too? Temporary, is it 15-minute parking on Elm Street? No?
Not that I know
No, okay,
of, no.
all right. I just got misunderstood that.
Yeah, I thought just Donnie Boston just bought 2 parking spots. The giant building there on Chapel? Is it like 50 apartments or something? I don't know, it's a huge number of apartments.
Oh, the senior housing?
No, this is an apartment building.
Yeah.
It's behind the post office?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the brick one, right?
No,
No,
it's
no,
wooden,
it's
it's
just
white
behind.
wooden.
Oh, okay.
Behind the
Oh,
bank.
oh, behind the bank.
Yes.
Is that behind, I'm trying to
No,
think.
if you're buying parking, the property that has a lot of parking.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place, yeah, it's behind, it's, yeah, it's behind it's near the old firehouse. You
Oh,
turn
that's
by
the
the old
housing
firehouse and you turn
development.
right
That's
there.
that's the
That
senior
is
housing.
the senior housing.
Yeah,
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 okay.
okay,
Building.
okay.
Yeah,
Oh.
he bought some parking there for his restaurant. Well, he
Good
rents it,
exercise
yeah.
going down, up and down the hill to go eat.
No, it's right there at the bottom.
No, it's
Oh, it's at the bottom. Oh, at the
Just
corner.
bottom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Just
it's
like
the old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that
That's
white,
where
Marcot's
Marcot's used to.
yeah, that
Marcot's
white
used to-
building, that's not senior housing, is it? That's
No,
just standard
the
apartments.
white building isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, it's across the street from that.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it's at the base of the senior housing.
Yes,
Yeah, but the
yeah,
senior housing is like
yeah.
200 feet above it.
Yeah, that's where Marcot's used to
Yeah.
park there. Okay,
That's that.
thank you. Bart, any,
Any
Any
other
reports, anything?
commissions? I think
everybody else,
I think
Oh.
energy and environment, I wasn't able to attend, but their work, I think, is pretty much done. They've got their master plan recommendations, they've got all of the language stuff for the, community power, part done, so I think all of that should be moving either our way or to the town council, I believe, because I think they're done. They've done their hearings. They did their 2 hearings. So
Yeah.
They're completed their work on those those are their
Good.
2 biggest projects of the year, basically.
Other towns have already switched over, is that right?
Yep, like Nashua's the biggest one,
Okay.
Nashua, and they locked in at 16 cents a kilowatt, so right now, I think Eversource is 21 cents. So-
Yeah, I own some property in Canterbury, and they tell us next month is the first month we're getting the new bill.
So, yeah,
So are you anticipating the council will adopt it next month?
I don't know, that's,
Yeah, that doesn't
Oh.
the
sound-
council.
Oh, wait, they'll have public hearings.
Yeah,
Okay.
they'll have their process for going through it, but they've had, I mean, there's been a lot of information out there already.
And that impacts every property in town. Do they switch everybody automatically?
It does not, actually. I believe that if you have currently already switched from Eversource,
Oh,
then you will not
Okay.
be defaulted
Yeah.
into this. It's
That's how it is in
That's
Canterbury.
what I was gonna ask,
That makes
because,
only if you're in
You're really
Eversource.
committed,
yeah,
Because
see, for-
you already opted out of
Right.
Eversource,
Right.
which was your default.
yeah, okay.
And there's some question about a few other types of properties that looks like it's gonna be litigated. So basically, if you have solar on your house and you are part of the program with Eversource, Eversource is fighting giving up those people. They're saying they can't do it.
Hmm.
It's technologically not possible.
What if,
Oh, really? Oh, see, I don't believe that.
yeah, what if,
Whether they want to do it or not is a different story, but.
was there any discussion on you make the switch, then you add solar?
That has not come up. They have not said anything about that.
Okay.
So that could be different.
Okay.
But if you are already participating, they're saying there's no way they can give that data to another company.
Okay.
But again, it's already being litigated in another town, so
We'll find out.
something's gonna happen with
Yeah.
that.
Wow.
Interestingly, in Canterbury, you can choose that you default to a 25% green, but you can opt in to a 50%, a 75%, or 100%.
At different rates?
The price goes up,
At
obviously,
different rates,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you'll have some options like that here too, but the most important one is it's lower.
The base
And
is lower.
The base is always gonna be lower.
Yeah.
Are they doing anything about EV stations? Is that in the plan?
That's not part of, this is just, it's basically just the purchase of electricity we're talking about. We're not even talking about the power lines, none of that.
Yep.
So that's totally a separate separate thing, EV stations.
So you would get two bills going forward if you had, you
No.
got.
No, you
No,
No,
you'd
it's always
get
one bill.
just like you would if you had gone with direct energy or one of the other.
Yeah.
And it'll just show on there, would say, you got charged this much for your electricity and you got charged this much for the lines.
The delivery.
The delivery.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's all it would be.
You know how many EV stations we have in town now that the town pays for?
We have the library, we have the two down at the boat launch parking lot. Do we have a third in the municipal lot? I can't remember now, I don't think we do. Do we, Bart? Do we have one in the municipal lot over across the street?
I don't
By
believe
the
so.
railroad track? We don't have
No.
one over there, so I
There's
think
none
that's
here
it.
at the town hall?
No, there's none here in town. We don't have any.
Oh wait, there might be on Railroad actually.
Yeah,
There might be one there, yeah.
over there. I
Yeah.
think there is one over
Yeah.
there.
Library
Correct me if
has
I'm
one.
wrong, but I
yeah.
don't believe we only have, we have, not electric vehicles, we have the ones that use hybrids. We have some hybrid police cars, I believe. We have no EVs in our fleet currently, and the buses is contracted out, so, but those are probably in the future.
And we have a EV police car, a hybrid police car.
Hybrid,
One.
A1.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear up here the news that guys, I think they were in Kentucky, they robbed a store in an EV?
Yeah.
And they were out of charge, they got, they literally got
They
a
cut
mile
the
down the
charge
road
and-
and they ran out, they didn't even charge your vehicle. It's like doing it with no gas in your car, right? It's like, geez.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Never mind.
yeah, yeah. All right, thank you. Anybody else have anything to add?
I'd say for
Jeff?
conservation, again, a very, very active board currently. Doing a lot of great work. One thing that I'll bring up from our meeting last month was we had a guest speaker, Cody Kreutzer. He kind of presented his master's thesis basically to us, which was very interesting on kind of access to nature basically was his perspective. And I think that could be applicable to the planning board in multiple ways. Sidewalks, bike racks that we spoke of, if there's open space development, like over on Bald Hill, there's actually parking to access and utilize the open space. It's not kind of just if you live in the neighborhood. So I just thought something interesting. If we get a chance, we got a minute to go back and watch his presentation.
Mhm.
Got some good ideas, no doubt. The other thing is that you bring up is the pathways, connecting towns and whatnot.
Yeah, I got it right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I figured you would talk about
Yeah.
that, so, but I think that if anyone has time, like half an hour to watch Cody's presentation, I thought it was kind of worked some good ideas in there.
Are you seeing any dredge and fill or any kind of developers coming before the board?
No.
Commission?
We haven't got anything. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just a couple things. Right now, it's been posted, the RFP for the rezoning for the gateway, so that's out. So we expect, hopefully we'll get some bids in June, and we'll have a decision by early July, and we'll start that process.
Do you have a committee set up for that, or?
We're about to set one up, yeah, the steering committee. And then in July, late June, July, I'm gonna submit the RFP for the master plan update as well. Thinking. So that'll be a comprehensive overhaul of our master plan.
Has Steve talked at all about the Economic Development Committee? It's kind of like in limbo right now.
Yeah, not really, but I can definitely follow up. I mean, that's gonna, the corporation meets, I know.
Does NCDC?
NCDC meets regularly, but not the economic development, but we can pick that up again, and it's gonna be pertinent with the gateway conversation, so.
So I brought
yeah.
it up because that was the precursor to that.
Yeah, so I think once we get that consultant selected, then we can start meeting a lot more, and bringing in all the stakeholders. And then on that, Val and I and Mike Hoffman, we attended a Housing Opportunity Housing Academy. So it's part of our grant application requirement that we attend these sessions that basically help us become better facilitators in community engagement. So, when we were having these discussions on types of developments that we envision for, or the community envisions for the Gateway, kind of making a productive discussion. So, strategies on how to make those conversations more valuable, and making sure everyone's heard and brought to the table so a better product can be developed. So there'll be a few more sessions that will have a couple in person and online. So I thought that was, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Val. Any thoughts?
No, it's, I think this morning was really more just the intro stuff.
Right.
What I took out of it is there's just so much information and resources through the housing, authority.
Yeah,
Like,
New Hampshire Finance.
That's
Yeah.
worth just going on to their website. That might be worth sending the link out.
Okay, yeah, I can do that. And kind of like that too, there's a zoning atlas that was just published today by St. Anselm's. So it's kind of, you can see it's an interactive map that shows different types of, what the zoning allows, which is kind of interesting, so I have to poke around on that.
Between communities?
Yeah,
Shows the entire state.
the entire state.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it needs to be updated because our zoning's been updated too, so.
So they digitized anyone who has zoning regs?
Yeah.
Huh.
Certain segments, like, single, detached, allowed, ADUs,
Yeah.
where those are. I have to take a little deeper dive, and that much time to explore.
You can't really open it on a phone. You gotta open it I tried to open it on my phone and I couldn't. Wouldn't open.
Another thing, town's gonna apply for a coastal resiliency grant, and the idea for this grant application is to create a draft master plan chapter for the plan board to review for the riverfront area, to basically be a master plan for riverfront development. What the town would like to see there, recreation, coastal resiliency methods,
Down
Basically.
Shanda Park.
yeah, along the river, downtown river, part of the river, so a lot of different parcels, not just Shanda Park. So really creating a vision for that area. So we thought the master plan process, would be the best way to set some goals, rational basis for different, for development there, or not just development, but use of that area. We're gonna go with SRPC, and then also Plan New Hampshire. They're gonna help us with, I confirmed with them that we're gonna do a design charrette for that chapter. So a little more public engagement specifically for that chapter, because it's such a, special resource to the town that not say other places aren't, but, there's so many stakeholders that need to be engaged. So, and I think their help would be pretty useful. So that should be a great process if we are awarded the grant money.
When will you know that?
End of June.
About-
End of June.
oh, so
So we
coming up to
apply
Friday.
May 24th is the deadline. So a couple weeks. So, we're on our way doing that, and we'll know by end of June if we get the money or not.
And that's a master plan chapter.
It will be, yeah.
So you'll want like a vote of the board.
Oh, yeah, it has to come from you. So basically, board will be part of the whole process, I think, in the development, but ultimately, there'll be another process during the master plan update for another crack at it. If that makes sense. Part of the procedure was.
So you've had luck getting grants, huh?
I'm 1 for 1 right now.
What do you mean?
100%.
As opposed to expertise,
Yeah,
that's why he was hired.
When they threw the
Yeah.
darts at him on the
Yeah.
wall.
That's right.
It hit Newmarket.
Yeah. I'm 1 for 1 there.
I didn't mean
So
to
I'm
jinx
down
you.
500.
I didn't mean to jinx you.
No, it's-
But in general, the town has been doing very, very well.
absolutely. Sean Gregg does it, he's excellent getting grants at Water and Services. So I think towns does a great job, and they're pretty successful. I had a chance last month to go to Concord to testify about housing issues. Specifically, I was requested to go there to talk about ADUs and what Newmarket's has done in updating their regs, and also elaborate on what we're seeing in town and where challenges reside and stuff. So that was a fruitful discussion there. And then, kind of, Jeff alluded to it, Pathways to People. So Ellen Schneider, myself, and Tom Jones, who's part of the Conservation Commission, we kind of have drafted this kind of initiative. It's called Pathways for People in Nature. And really what it is to, really to protect, natural resources, identify those areas, create trail connectivity, so filling in those gaps of existing hiking trails that we have. So really kind of protecting areas that are needed for wildlife and natural resources, protecting those areas where for recreation, and also kind of, I would say, nudging, development, I would say, ultimately towards integrating with these open spaces, these areas. So how can we do that? So really, I'll send, once the Conservation Commission's finalizes the documents, or it's in draft form right now, I'll send it to the planning board. I'll just read out the 3 goals just real quickly. So it's to protect our drinking water supplies, restore and maintain natural shoreline along the Lamprey and Piscasset rivers, and protect freshwater wetlands and salt marsh that provide many benefits to our community, to protect critical natural habitats and places to maintain connectivity across landscapes for animals and land and in the water, and to create trail connectivity across the town between our neighboring communities to ensure safe recreation and commuting for pedestrians and cyclists. So really it's, identifying those areas and how can we create policies, to maybe achieve that. So, and then final thing is kind of working off that. Ellen and I have been invited to go to Durham Planning Board to talk about what great things we're doing in Newmarket. So really, we're just describing all our initiatives that we're doing and just talking to our neighbors.
What was the genesis of that?
Funny you should ask. So, as you all know, I have difficult transportation. So I use the bus, which is ending, by the way. If it's a public service announcement, the bus ends this week. So, so there will be no more Wildcat service.
Oh, wow.
So, just an FYI for those folks out there. And the planning board chair is a bus driver. Of Durham. So I knew him prior when I lived in Durham. I was on the Conservation Commission there, and Alan was actually a staff person there as well. She was contracted to help them out, help them with their conservation easements and kind of standardize their documents and protocols there. Anyway, so Chair and I, we just talk shop. So what are you doing in Durham, and what we're doing in Newmarket. And I just told him what great things we're doing here in Newmarket, and he was really interested, being, a neighboring community. I talk about how we're looking for this trail connectivity. Maybe there's a way to create like a commuter path between the 2 towns. We're exploring ideas. So really, like all these goals, which I think maybe align, I'm not sure, with what Durham's trying to achieve. And then also, the kind of, we talk about like the housing issues that the Seacoast is experiencing. So we talk about what we're doing here in Newmarket to try to resolve that, and what type of economic development we're trying to catalyze. So, based on what he heard, I assumed that he found it interesting, and he'd just like to and want to invite me and Alan to speak about these things that we're doing, we're trying to achieve.
Did you get to drive the bus for a day?
No. I'll take the last ride. Friday will be my last ride in the sunset.
That's
Do
awesome.
you know after the meeting we're signing up for when we bring Bart over?
Yeah. That's right. I'm actually going to stay overnight in a friend's house in Durham. So.
Guess we'll have to build an ADU for you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Should we look at doing the opposite? Maybe
We could, yeah.
Inviting one of our neighbors to come here and just talk about what they're doing in their planning board?
We could, yeah. So, I mean, that's up to the board to decide, but, yeah, I think it's always good to, see what other communities are doing and how we can, maybe work together,
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I would only say let's wait till we get some of the stuff off our plate,
Absolutely, no, yeah.
But I agree, yeah.
Any updates from any of the approved housing developments? We've got,
Yeah.
3 of them that I
Yeah,
think are approved, they
so,
haven't done any-
Milltown, which is the one off Tanner Circle, it's a new development, it's one with the condominium conversion with the duplex.
Yep.
You know that,
Up
you know,
off
up,
of-
off the hill there, off Hirsch Street.
No, I'm talking more like, the Stebbins project,
That has not moved forward yet.
Walton Juniors.
Walton Junior has not moved forward yet. So,
I mean, there's some real numbers there.
right, I think it comes down to costs. Yeah, ultimately. That's what I've heard from the developers.
I
Yeah.
actually saw Walter Cheney a few weeks ago, Walter Cheney Jr.
Yeah.
And he's still trying to get his project going.
Yeah, I think, you know, the concern there is you just see in the other communities, the amount of housing that's being developed. I don't, you know, what's the impetus here in Newmarket for the projects that have been approved of not moving forward versus what you're seeing in Dover, let's say, or Somersworth, or Rochester.
Right.
Some of it, I
Or
think,
Durham.
massing. Some of it, you know, like I think Wally's is, well, it's got a big commercial stuff on the first floor, which is difficult now.
Yes, yeah,
Right.
right.
And the one over here has 7 or 8 units.
8 units.
I mean, if you're doing a 50-unit project, it's a lot easier,
Right.
more cost-effective than doing a 7 or 8 unit. What did Wally have at the top of his? 11?
28.
He went to
Oh,
27,
yeah.
Just 2
right?
buildings.
Went back
I think
up.
one was 4 units towards the railroad tracks more,
Yes,
and then
yes.
28
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the main building. Yeah, the commercial is tough right now. So I think, you know, as we're having these rezoning and updates, you know, what should commercial look like, you know, in the future for Newmarket to make it, because we want economic development, we want people to move here,
Right.
do business here, so how can we accommodate that?
So is Stebbins also a financing
Correct.
issue?
I would guess it is.
Yeah.
He
So
was,
it'll be interesting to see if Bennett Way moves forward quickly.
Right, he said next year potentially. Yeah,
Because that will be, how many units?
12 units.
12, yeah.
you know, Massachusetts just passed a law 6 months ago whereby it's for starter homes. You can, if you build homes of, I think it's 800 square feet, and with a certain price range, you can basically ignore zoning and build, you know, 6 per acre or whatever.
Well,
Which
Exeter this
which
morning.
towns can adopt that type of zoning.
So what I found, one thing that came out of the housing discussion this morning was evidently Exeter has zoning.
special exception, I think.
Is it through a special
Yeah.
exception? Where you can convert a single-family home up to 4 units. So you've got like the bigger houses over there.
Oh, I didn't know
That
that.
you can go and just convert into 4 units.
It's kind of an interesting tool.
Yeah, that kind of was like, wow, I didn't
Yeah.
realize that was going on.
Well, there are some big houses in Exeter.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Have there been any ADU applications here?
We got one,
One. Nice.
so.
How's it going, Scott? You under construction yet?
Was
No.
it previously allowed or only allowed since we?
It would have not been allowed.
Oh, wow.
So
where it's
detached?
working?
It's attached by Breezeway right now.
Oh.
It's over a garage. No, not that
Oh,
one. No.
Is that legal, that bridge?
It's there.
It's there.
For legal opinion, right?
Yeah.
Does anybody have anything else to add?
That's all I have.
Anybody, anything else? Well, thank you all. It was a lot of great discussion, a lot of different opinions. It's great to hear. Jane,
I make a motion to adjourn.
is there a second? Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good night.
See you all next month.
And so